In this episode, another week of poor planning and some bad weather keeps me from buttoning up the radiator issue on Project Ford Fairmont. Welcome to a stuck indoors blizzard edition of Straight Six Fan. Hey guys, it's a cold one out there today. My name's Grant Tommy, and like I said, this is my channel, Straight Six Fan, where I like to focus on budget-minded, creative, relatable builds, a little something I like to call offbeat hot rodding. And today we are getting back on Project Ford Fairmont's cooling system. However, it's been a week's worth of poor planning that's gonna prevent me from really getting this thing all the way wrapped up. But I'm gonna do what I can today and try to get one step closer to getting this radiator installed, flushed, and get the car back on the road. And if you stick around to the end of this episode, you'll see which location I landed on for installing the auxiliary gauges. So if you didn't notice already from the clips I showed you, we are in a blizzard warning here today on Sunday, November, whatever today is. Being a blizzard outside, I can't make it to O'Reilly's today. The one thing I forgot to order with all the stuff that I ordered through O'Reilly's was hose clamps, and it was a little unclear to me which size I really probably should have got. So I didn't do that, so I don't have hose clamps, but I do have new upper and lower radiator hoses. I did get the new radiator cap already installed. So that's good. I'm going to, although, you know, my rule usually is I don't do a budget update until I install actual pieces. Since I'm halfway installing some of the things today, I'm just going to go ahead and give you a budget update on basically where I'm at today with all these radiator components. So, like I said, that will be short, the hose clamps, but I've got a few little odds and ends I can do today, and so let's get to that. Okay, as you've noticed, I haven't backed out my wife's car today because, of course, of the blizzard outside. And so we have tight quarters today, but as I mentioned, I would give you a budget update. Where we left off, the budget was sitting at $1,856.65. Of course, the used radiator was $100, and then this miscellaneous box of supplies from O'Reilly's, which we will dig into here in a second, $46.91, thus bringing today's budget total down to $1,709.74 remaining in the budget. But let's go take a look at what's in the O'Reilly's box. Okay, like you know from last week, if you've been following along, I had to order certain parts because they weren't in stock at my local O'Reilly's. So we did a lower and upper radiator hose. So today the plan is to take off the old lower radiator hose and put the new one on, at least on the water pump side or the engine side. And then we will hopefully buy some hose clamps later this week, get that buttoned up. You already saw the radiator cap. Got a new thermostat gasket, which means we also got a new thermostat. And lastly, we got ourselves a bottle of radiator flush and cleaner. So the thought process today, we're gonna get off the old hose and then we're gonna try to take apart the thermostat because from what I understand, it's best to run this with no thermostat in, just so you have a constant flow. So we're going to take the old thermostat out, leave the old gasket, but we're going to take it apart, and we're also going to look around the thermostat housing for a place to put the probe of our JEGS gauges you saw in last week's episode. Again, at the end of the episode, I will show you guys the final resting place I decided on. But one thing to know, maybe this is a little bit of a hint, I did buy mechanical gauges. So we are going to look for a place to put the probe for the mechanical gauge. So I did go ahead and get the transmission cooler lines hooked back up. You may remember that from last week's episode. Now I'm going to leave the radiator loose in the brackets until I'm done with the thermostat and everything, just to give me that extra little play should I need it. But because I still have the my catch pan underneath from 2 weeks ago, I'm gonna pull the lower hose. I get that out of the way. So you can see the two lower radiator hoses are a little different shape, but they do, you know, start and stop at the same place. I test fitted this, and so it is going to work. I'm not too concerned about it not being exact. But yeah, one other thing I'll say is, you know, you might have noticed I was in my short sleeve t-shirt, and it's in thanks in part to this guy. Although it's 20 degrees outside and snowy. This guy, and I'll leave a info card to it. I did a video on it last year. Is helping the garage stay at about a little over 60 degrees, about 64 degrees here. So yeah, even when it's super cold out, I can usually maintain above 50 degrees with this guy. You know, it works for my needs for what space I have, but yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna slide this guy back on. So probably hard to see here. Thermostat housing is down here by the distributor. We do have like this heater bypass. There we go, I can't even see myself. Tube here to bypass the thermostat for the heater. This hose is pretty cracked, kind of swollen looking. So we're gonna want to replace that as well. This is another reason why, you know, the reason why I forgot to mention why I didn't buy the hose clamps in my online order. I was just afraid of buying something that was too small, so I figured it'd be better off if I could take the new hoses into the local O'Reilly's and then buy appropriate hose clamps that way. Again, we talked about this last week, but this style puts uneven pressure on these things. But I'm hopeful this little collar up here is something I can thread out for the water temp gauge. That'll be pretty easy to get to if I have to, but I want to get everything, make sure I have everything in line to install that. After I do the flush, I'll send, you know, I'll run water and that antifreeze or radiator flush stuff through the system once and then drain everything. You know, if this is full of antifreeze, you know, when I remove that, of course, stuff will bubble up. So, hence another reason why to do the water temp gauge at the same time. But anyway, we're gonna work on getting the housing off, remove the thermostat, and probably calling it quits today, getting this hose off as well, so I can take that into the local O'Reilly's and get a replacement of that. Okay, so I got the heater bypass tube out and started to work on the thermostat housing. I did back this bolt out, but there's one that's in like an impossible place to get to around the neck on the bottom side. So I was attempting to remove the air conditioning compressor, hoping that was going to get me enough room to be able to get a wrench in underneath the distributor, because I really don't want to mess with the distributor, that we have it timed correctly. But yeah, I kind of had no such luck on the air compressor. I need to probably jump on a forum and do some research on what all I need to do to remove that. And we got the tensioner belt off and everything, but yeah, it just I was down to what I thought was one more bolt, and it just wasn't coming loose. So anyway, I need to do some research on that, but let's go jump into the interior real fast and I'll show you my decision on the water temp and oil pressure gauge. Okay, so finally, as promised, I have elected to, with option number 2, I'm going to build a gauge pod that goes in the ashtray. And the reason for this is because I bought mechanical gauges. As you may or may not know, an oil pressure gauge then literally has oil plumbed to it in a small line. So should that ever come loose, I have a built-in catch pan for the oil. Now, I don't know if I'll ever buy mechanical gauges ever again. Again, this is part of the learning process. You know, I didn't learn this stuff until after I bought it, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with them. I think they look fine. I don't anticipate that if it ever did leak, it would be until, you know, way down the road, but you never know. Use or install.
but I still think I'm going to build a faceplate out of the walnut veneer I have to help match the rest of the interior here. But that's just thought I would follow up there. So we will go throw the camera on the tripod and I will send you guys off.
So it certainly stinks I didn't get much more done this episode, but that's again the point of the project car. I can work on something. If I get into a stumbling block, you know, it just sits here and then I figure it out and then I get back on it. So no big deal. Did want to remind you, if you want a straight 6-fan Pistons tee, link in the description below to my Spreadshirt store. That'll do it for this episode, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, or comment. I'm just asking you to do one of those 4 things, whichever you're most comfortable with. I mean, preferably it's the share thing, but hey, you know, whatever you want to do. That'll do it for this episode, and until next time, peace out.